Dad, guess what?
What?
We're live to the people. Say what's up to the people, Dad. It's Lichtman Live.
Hey, Lichtman live on a momentous night.
Yes,
The State of the Union in an election year.
absolutely. We've got the State of the Union teed up here. Um, as you can see, they say we will begin shortly, but they haven't actually begun yet. So until then, it's just me and you, Dad.
Well, I hope you have some viewers too.
Oh, we definitely got some viewers, man. That's for sure.
Good to hear.
Let's give some quick shout outs. We got 63 people watching right from the jump.
All
Oh,
right.
Mike DeNicola became a member. Thank you, Mike DeNicola, for becoming a member or for being a member for a
We need
whole
those
month.
members.
Let's see. We've got other members here. We got Patrick Murray, Vernus, Riley P, Terry Green, Elemental Bot, UV Lighting, George Miller. We've also got some non-members here like Will Strumiker, Jim Blowers, Conan Katara, Owen Valdala. A lot of great people here tonight, Dad.
Love it. And you're getting good at pronouncing those names. We need those members. You want to keep us going. We're operating on a shoestring, but I have some comments to make.
I was going to say,
Are you ready?
let's get your preview.
Yeah. First of all, State of the Unions are usually pretty forgettable, unless something, usually spectacular blow up happens, like President Bill Clinton in 1996 saying the era of big government is over. The worst prediction maybe in the history of the country. Big government's exploded since then. Or George W. Bush talking about the axis of evil, Iran, Iraq, and North Korea after 9/11. And of course, there was the heckling in the last Joe Biden State of the Union. So what's happened with the State of the Union generally is they used to be these very solemn, decorous affairs, and now they're forums for the audience to chime in with nasty comments, with heckling, and it's not unique to the State of the Union. What's going on in the State of the Union address that we saw last time is typical of what's happened generally in our politics. Look at what's happened to presidential debates. I would refer every viewer to the Kennedy-Nixon debates of 1960. They were a model for an outstanding debate. They were respectful. They were substantive. They were serious. Compare that to the clown shows, that debates have become today. And it's typical of the devolution of our politics. What's happened is both liberals and conservatives think the other side is not just wrong on the issues, but un-American and dangerous. And once you think that, all of the rules come tumbling down. But I have to say, this State of the Union is a case of throw me in that briar patch. Nothing could play more clearly into Joe Biden's hands than hecklers. We saw that last time, how good he was at parrying the hecklers and even turning around what they were doing. Say, hey, I guess we're all on the same page in protecting Social Security and Medicare. It was a great jujitsu move. Hopefully for Biden, they do it again and he gets a chance to show he's not some doddering, ineffective old man, but he's still sharp. He's still able to deal with challenges of the moment in a really effective way. Because the truth is, the only big rap on Joe Biden is, that he's old, maybe failing in his memory, makes a lot of gaffes. The outrageous report of Special Counsel Robert Hur played right into that. That's the narrative. The biggest narrative he has to counter tonight. The other thing he has to do is sell what he's done for the country. Nobody knows what Joe Biden has done, including the greatest domestic accomplishments of any president since the 1960s. He needs to draw some real contrast as well with Donald Trump, and without being too offensive, point out the big thing about Donald Trump, what a danger he is to our democracy. A great irony. A couple of days ago, Donald Trump said Joe Biden is the worst president in U.S. history. Just the day before, they published a survey of leading authorities on the presidency. And guess who they said the worst president in the history of the country was? Not Joe Biden, Donald Trump. Another one of the great ironies about Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm. All right, looks like someone's coming to the podium here.
We're about, I guess, to introduce Joe Biden.
Yes. Can you hear that, Dad? Can you hear it, Dad?
I only hear you.
You don't hear me?
I hear you. I don't hear anything from the floor of the Congress. I don't know if they're talking up at the microphone yet.
There's just some like ambient noise. Do you hear that?
No.
Okay. Okay. 1
I
second.
only hear you.
Give me 1 second, everybody. Oops.
I hear it now.
Okay, perfect. Whew, that was scary for a second. I was afraid it wasn't going to work. All right, Dad, we're in the chamber with Lichtman live, Dad.
Well, this is the last chance Joe Biden will have to address directly tens of millions of Americans and make his case as to why they should vote for him re-election.
I'm about to say, is this the most important? Is an election year State of the Union the most important State of the Union by far?
Oh, yeah. As I said, most State of the Unions, except for kind of, spectacular claims, tend to be totally unmemorable.
Right.
And they move the approval needle a little bit, but then it regresses back to the mean. This is a great chance for Joe Biden to, in an uninterrupted way, or hopefully an interrupted way with hecklers, to directly address, I think there were 27 million viewers last time. And it goes beyond the viewers, of course.
Right.
Because the media writes the stories and disseminates it to tens of millions of more Americans who aren't watching.
Maybe other than wartime. Maybe wartime is also another time where it's very important, right?
Yeah, there have been some very important states and unions. The Monroe Doctrine by President James Monroe was articulated in the State of the Union.
Right.
Franklin Roosevelt's famous Four Freedoms were articulated in the State of the Union. Lyndon Johnson talked about elements of his Great Society in a State of the Union speech. So it can be important, even though it usually is not especially memorable.
Right.
But in an election year, with a candidate being attacked for alleged age and diminished capacity, how he comes across and how he deals with hecklers, if there are any, is just as important as the substance of the speech.
Really? You think so? I don't think the hecklers matter at all. Really?
The rap against Joe Biden, it's not that he's not substantive. The rap against Joe Biden, really the only big rap is that he supposedly has a bad memory, commits a lot of gaffes, may not be up to the par. If he can counter that narrative,
right,
then he succeeded in the State of the Union.
Okay. I just want to tell people, thank you for the donations. Keep them coming, but we will not get to any big questions until after the
There's my
address.
Classmate, Gary Nadler.
He was your classmate?
My debate partner in the 1960s at Stuyvesant High School.
He was your class.
Was later chairman of the House Judiciary.
I didn't know he was your classmate.
Yep.
Huh. Interesting. Let me see if I can turn.
Nancy Pelosi was not my classmate.
I didn't think
He's
so.
a lot older.
Just making sure that we have the subtitles on. All right. There's.
Remember, Nancy Pelosi made a famous State of the Union statement in 2020 when, after Trump's speech, she ripped up the copy of the speech.
I do remember that very well.
Symbolically telling the world what she thought of him.
I remember that quite well. I thought that was a weird move, honestly.
It was a very weird move.
Yeah.
But not as bad as what we saw last time from Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Right, true.
At least she waited till the speech was over.
Right.
But as I said, the best thing that could happen to Joe Biden is heckling.
You keep saying that. I don't know if I agree, but okay, I hear
We'll
you.
see.
We'll see.
Throw me in that briar patch. He
Right.
was so good last time, and that's the best way to counter, the narrative of the doddering old man. I'm
Yeah.
very sensitive to that narrative, by the way.
Oh, why is that?
I'll be 77 on your birthday, Sam,
Wow.
April 4th, 2024. Not that much younger than Joe Biden.
I got my
Same
snacks
age as
ready,
Donald
Dad.
Trump. I hate to admit it.
Dad, I got my snacks ready.
All right.
Skittles, and I got a LaCroix. Here comes Jill
I
Biden.
have, guess what I have here?
Diet Coke.
You got it. They actually have Diet Coke in Brazil, and they've given me an ample supply.
Oh, wow. Here's Jill Biden, Dad.
There's Jill. She looks good.
Yeah, she's always looked good.
Yeah, and she's not a whole lot younger than Joe.
How old is she?
70s.
Patrick Murray says he's eating a burrito, Dad.
No.
Oh.
I am filled with steak.
Hold on. He just hit the gavel.
Mr. Speaker, the President's Cabinet.
Who cares?
All right.
All right. So this is
There's the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken.
He's not even
There's
close.
Janet Yellen,
He's not even close.
Treasury.
He's not even close to coming in right now, right? It's going to be another 15 minutes at least, right? Don't you think?
Well, yeah.
What?
There's Secretary Austin, Secretary of Defense.
Kamala looks good too, actually.
She looks very good, but she's not old. She's in her 50s.
Yeah.
I consider that a kid, of course.
Right, of course, compared to you.
Well, as I said, everyone at this conference where I've been speaking looks like a kid.
Right.
I've been doing the Zoom, and they all look like kids.
Right. Thank you all for the donations. Thank you for the member questions. We will get to them after the State of the Union. We're going to focus on the address, and then we'll get to them after. Right, Dad?
Right. The lady in red, Jennifer Granholm, Secretary of Energy.
Oh, wow. You're just an encyclopedia tonight, aren't you?
Pretty damn good for a doddering old man.
Not bad, I have to say.
Not bad at all. And there's your boss, Buttigieg.
You're not supposed to say where I work.
Oh, I don't think people will know where you work from that.
Yes, they will. Of course they will.
Oh, no. See what happens when you get old? You forget things.
Yeah. It's all right. It's not that big of a deal. It's just a personal
I don't know
choice.
why you care.
It's just
Everyone knows where I work.
Well, let's not get into it.
We're not going to get into this.
Yeah. I mean, you're an academic. It's different.
It's different.
Ezra says we all know where you work, bro. I guess. I mean, you've spilled it many times before, I guess, but.
Yeah. They were the two clowns of the Senate, Ted Cruz and Senator Kennedy.
Yeah, the two clowns. The two clowns, baby. Let's get them.
The two clowns of the Senate.
I like that. I like that nickname. That's Mayorkas?
That's the impeached Mayorkas. Does he care? No.
Doesn't seem to.
Department of Homeland Security.
How come you're not in the presidential cabinet, Dad? That's what I want to know.
I'm too important.
Right. Good point.
Look, it's Merrick Garland. Boo!
You booed him?
Pardon?
You booed him.
Yeah, Merrick is an old friend of mine. I've known him since the 60s. I love the guy. I thought he was one of the greatest judges of all time and one of the worst attorney generals of all time. And it's not his fault. He never should have been attorney general. He's a judge.
Right.
He has a judicial temperament. He's cautious. He's slow. He diddled for over a year before starting investigations about the January 6th insurrection. We all knew what happened on January 7th, and he waited over a year. And that's why we're bumping up against all of these deadlines. All of this should have been happening last year.
Right.
And there should have been no question that the trial is going to take place long before the presidential election. But because Garland diddled and fiddled, we're now in this pickle.
I don't like you saying I don't like you saying diddled and fiddled. I don't like that at all.
No,
I'm skipping that.
All right. You're sticking up for my old friend Merrick?
No, I just don't like you saying diddled and fiddled sounds weird.
All right.
But Patrick Murray makes a good point. He said Garland was robbed by McConnell.
Garland was the victim of one of the worst, most disreputable maneuvers in the history of the country. They sat on his appointment for, God, 10 months, didn't act on it, on the bogus claim that you don't confirm an appointment in an election year. And of course, that had been done before. And guess what?
What?
When Amy Coney Barrett came up just right before the election, what did Mitch McConnell do? He instantly confirmed her after sitting on Merrick Garland for 10 months. That's changed the course of history.
Yeah, but there's nothing you can do about it.
Nothing. But, you know, I'm an historian. I talk about these things.
Good point. Oh, I forgot for a second that you were a historian.
Yeah. It should have been a 5-4 conservative liberal, not a 6-3. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, look, Republicans don't always play by the rules, and that gives them a lot of power and influence in this country, you know?
Right. As I said, you know, Republicans lack principle, Democrats lack a backbone.
That is your famous line, isn't it?
That's my famous line, and I'm sticking to it. It's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
There's Lizzie, and who's that? Who's that next?
Senator Whitehurst.
Oh, right. He seems
Elizabeth Warren, Senator Whitehurst.
Whitehurst seems like a pretty good guy, right?
He's a very good guy. I can't believe I'm recognizing these people.
Why? Why can't you believe that?
Memory or something.
James.
And of course, we all know who's up there on the podium, right?
Mike Johnson and
God's messenger, Mike Johnson, and the Vice President, Kamala Harris. I don't know who they are.
I think they're the
guests.
They're the parents of that journalist who's been detained for
the ones who's detained in Russia. Yeah, that's right. Biden brought them.
Yeah,
they don't look happy, and they shouldn't.
Well, yeah, their son's in the gulag. All right, here's Biden.
The president of
It
the
doesn't
United
look a
States.
bit like Biden. There he is. That's pretty good for an old guy.
Not bad.
Not bad. Not bad at all.
Kevin wants the Dems to chant 4 more years.
And there's Chuck Schumer right behind him.
Good old Chucky boy, huh?
Another New York guy. You were right. At least 15 minutes.
I told you. Can you hear me better now, Dad?
What?
Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm hearing all the noise from the chamber just fine.
They're just clapping and chatting right now.
Yeah, that's important. You know, the visuals count, but it needs to get moving because, 9 o'clock in the East, that's already late.
Yeah. We don't really need to hear all this chatter, do we?
Yeah, no. And I doubt if he's going to speak as long as, guess who gave the longest inaugural address? It's no surprise.
You mean State of the Union?
Guy loves to talk.
You mean State of the Union?
State of the Union, right.
You said inaugural address. Who gave the longest? No. Trump.
Nope. Close.
Let me guess again. A guy who loves to talk?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Bill Clinton. Come on.
I don't know.
Yeah. Never can shut up, Bill.
True.
And there were a couple of presidents who never got to deliver a State of the Union because they died, like William Henry Harrison, who died shortly after giving the longest inaugural address in the reign, and James Garfield, who was assassinated. And Thomas Jefferson stopped the tradition of delivering the State of the Union in person. He started a new tradition of only doing it in writing because he felt, as a Republican, as a man of the people, it was too monarchical, too, formal to give an address. And that held until 1913, when Woodrow Wilson broke the tradition. And then Calvin Coolidge in 1923 gave the first radio address. Harry Truman gave the first TV address, and Lyndon Johnson gave the first primetime TV address. So there's been a real evolution of the State of the Union. It's also one of the very few presidential obligations specified in the Constitution. The Constitution specifies that from time to time, the president has to report to the Congress on the State of the Union.
What did Marjorie Taylor
Greene?
What did Marjorie Taylor Greene just give Biden?
What did Marjorie Taylor Greene do?
She just gave
She
Biden.
gave something to Biden?
Yeah, like a pin that said something on it.
I couldn't see it.
Oh. I'm eating Skittles.
Maybe it was a stink bomb.
It said something. James Lagruda says it said Lankin Riley. Who's that?
Lankin Riley?
L.A. It's about L.A. Oh, Laken. Lakenriley.
I don't know who that is.
Oh, the young lady killed in Georgia by the
undocumented immigrant.
Yeah,
yeah. This is part of this notorious immigrant threat narrative that immigrants are a great threat to the safety. There have been multiple studies, including by the conservative Cato Institute, which decisively demonstrate legal and undocumented immigrants commit crimes at much lower levels than native-born Americans. Of course, you can come up with examples of undocumented immigrants. There are 11 million, who commit crimes. But, there are, God knows how many, 25,000 murders a year. So you could find examples of anyone who commits murders and commit crimes. You can find evangelical white Christians and say, see, what a danger they are to the country. It's just despicable, the way they've tried to exploit this phony, bogus, made-up immigrant threat narrative.
But I think a lot of them make the point that, one person who's killed by an undocumented immigrant is too many, and they're not even supposed to be here, and they just killed an American,
As I said, there are 25,000 murders. Of course, when you have 11 million undocumented, some of them are going to commit crimes. That doesn't mean that undocumented immigrants pose a safety threat to the country.
Right.
The more undocumented immigrants that come in, the more Native Americans leave, the safer the country becomes.
Native Americans, not Indians.
Pardon me?
You're not talking about Indians.
Native-born Americans.
Oh, I see.
Indians.
Usually when people say Native Americans, they mean
native-born Americans we're talking about. People born here, non-immigrants.
Right.
By the way, who are the ultimate illegal immigrants?
Europeans.
Yes, the Europeans who settled in America, slaughtered the Indians, and took their land. How much worse was that than anything that undocumented immigrants are doing today? They wiped out a whole people.
Fair point. Fair point.
And took all their lands and shoved them off into these reservation territories that nobody wanted.
Fair point.
And every time they pushed them to a reservation, if it turned out there was oil or some of the reason why the settlers might want it, they pushed them again.
Fair point.
So all this righteousness about, undocumented immigrants, at the same time, they're all celebrating the pioneer tradition of America.
Right.
It's hypocrisy you could cut with a butter knife.
You make fair points. I finished my Skittles.
He's really taking his time, isn't he?
I told you. I mean, it's been like, maybe even
25 minutes. He's going to be going till close to midnight. Not, maybe not, but, at least till close to 11 on the East.
Yeah, it's probably going to be 2 hours, right?
No, I think it'll be a little over an hour. No, it's not going to be 2 hours, unless there's a whole lot of heckling and a lot of interruptions. But Biden thinks, these visuals are important. They make him look good. They make him look celebrated.
Yeah.
But it's time to start. Is he listening to us?
Biden?
Does he have us in his earpiece?
He should.
He certainly should. See, he did listen. There he goes.
Here he is.
Yeah, Kamala looks good.
It's Kamala, man.
Kamala, I always get that.
Not Kamala.
I got it right the first time.
Tony.
This is good. This is a very, very good reception film.
Thank you. Senator Jill.
How many viewers do we have, Sam?
202.
Good evening.
Nice.
Good evening. If I were smart, I'd go home now.
What
Mr.
happened?
Speaker,
That's a good line.
Madam Vice
I like
President, members of Congress, my fellow Americans, in January 1941, Franklin Roosevelt came to this chamber to speak to the nation, and he said, "I address you at a moment unprecedented in the history of the Union. Hitler was on the march. War was raging in Europe. President Roosevelt's purpose was to wake up Congress and alert the American people that this was no ordinary time. Freedom and democracy were under assault in the world. Tonight, I come to this same chamber to address the nation. Now,
Good start.
it's we who face unprecedented
Great for
moment
Democrats to
in the history of
invoke
the Union.
FDR.
And yes, my purpose tonight is to wake up the Congress and alert the American people that this is no ordinary moment either. Not since President Lincoln and the Civil War have freedom and democracy been under assault at home as they are today. What makes our moment rare is that freedom and democracy are under attack both at home and overseas at the very same time. Overseas, Putin of Russia is on the march, invading Ukraine and sowing chaos throughout Europe and beyond. If anybody in this room thinks Putin will stop at Ukraine, I assure you he will not.
That was good.
That was very good.
But
It sounds good.
Mike Johnson's going,
Ukraine can stop
just
Putin.
like nodding his head. Like,
Yeah.
Ukraine can stop Putin if we stand with Ukraine and provide the weapons that it needs to defend itself.
the weapons
Very
line.
different.
The weapons line, I'm not sure about.
That is all. That is all Ukraine is asking. They're not asking for American soldiers. In fact, there are no American soldiers at war in Ukraine, and I'm determined to keep it that way. But now,
Good.
assistance to Ukraine is being blocked by those who want to walk away from our world leadership. It wasn't long ago when a Republican president named Ronald Reagan thundered, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." Now,
Invoke
Now my
FDR, then
predecessor.
invoke Reagan. Can't do better.
a former Republican president tells Putin, quote, "Do whatever the hell you want." That's a quote. A former president actually said that, bowing down to a Russian leader. I think it's outrageous, it's dangerous, and it's unacceptable.
That was good.
Woo! You don't see this often in the State of the Union, that kind of pointed attack.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
That was very good. And why not?
Okay.
This is the best shot at the
As a
electorate.
founding member of NATO, the military alliance of democratic nations created after World War II to prevent war and keep the peace. And today, we've made NATO stronger than ever. We welcomed Finland to the alliance last year. And just this morning, Sweden officially joined, and their minister is here tonight. Come here, stand up.
This is an awesome start. One of the best starts I've ever seen to a State of the Union. Usually they start slow and boring. You know, the State of the Union is strong, things are so good. This is way more pointed than anything I've seen before.
Yeah, I agree.
Alliance the world
And
has
this is,
never seen.
vanilla Joe Biden doing it.
I say this to Congress, we have to stand up to Putin. Send me a bipartisan national security bill.
Mike Johnson looks like he has a hernia.
History is literally watching.
Yeah, he does.
History is watching. If the United States walks away, it will put Ukraine at risk. Europe is at risk. The free world will be at risk, emboldening others to do what they wish to do us harm. My message to President Putin, who I've known for a long time, is simple. We will not walk away.
Woo! Go, Joe. Wow, this is a new Joe.
We will not bow down. I will not bow down.
Wow.
In a literal sense, history is watching. History is watching. Just like history watched 3 years ago on January 6th, when insurrectionists stormed this very Capitol and placed a dagger to the throat of American democracy.
Whoa.
Many of you were here on that darkest of days. We all saw with our own eyes the insurrectionists were not patriots. They'd come to stop the peaceful transfer of power, to overturn the will of the people. January 6th lies about the 2020 election and the plots to steal the election posed a gravest threat to U.S. democracy since the Civil War. But they failed. America stood.
Wow.
America stood
all his
strong,
vitamins today.
Yeah.
and democracy prevailed. We must be honest. The threat to democracy must be defended. My predecessor and some of you here seek to bury the truth about January 6th.
Ooh.
I will not do that.
Wow.
This is the moment to speak the truth and to bury the lies. Here's the simple truth. You can't love your country only when you win.
Oh, dang, got him.
Whoa. That was amazing. Even some Republicans are applauding.
Mike Johnson's nodding.
As I've
This
done
is Joe on steroids.
ever since being elected to office, I ask all of you without regard to party to join together and defend democracy. Remember your oath of office is defending against all threats, foreign and domestic. Respect free and fair elections, restore trust in our institutions, and make clear political violence has absolutely no place in America, zero place. Again,
Wow.
it's not
Gobsmacked.
It's not hyperbole.
Didn't expect
Yes,
this.
history
Neither
is
did I.
watching. We're watching. Your children and grandchildren will read about this day and what we do. History is watching another assault on freedom. Joining us tonight is Latoya Beasley, a social worker from Birmingham, Alabama. 14 months ago, she and her husband welcomed a baby girl thanks to the miracle of IVF. She scheduled treatments to have that second child.
He's hitting all the buttons.
The Alabama Supreme Court shut down IVF treatments across the state, unleashed by a Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade. She was told her dream would have to wait. What her family had got through should never have happened. Unless Congress acts, it could happen again. So tonight, let's stand up for families like hers. To my friends across the aisle, don't keep this waiting any longer.
Some guy in the chat keeps saying this is the most scripted speech ever. It's like, it's a speech. It's literally scripted. What are you talking about? Of course it's scripted.
Of course it's scripted. But it is unlike any State of the Union address I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot of
most Americans, I believe Roe v. Wade got it right. I thank Vice President Harris for being an incredible leader defending reproductive freedom and so much more. Thank you. My predecessor came to office determined to see Roe v. Wade overturned. He's the reason it was overturned, and he brags about it. Look at the chaos that has resulted. Joining us tonight is Kate Cox, the wife and mother from Dallas. She's become pregnant again and had a fetus of a fatal condition. Her doctor told Kate that her own life and her ability to have children in the future were at risk if she didn't act. Because Texas law banned her ability to act, Kate and her husband had to leave the state to get what she needed. What her family got through should have never happened as well, but it's happening in too many others. There are state laws banning the freedom to choose, criminalizing doctors, forcing survivors of rape and incest to leave their states to get the treatment they need. Many of you in this chamber and my predecessor are promising to pass a national ban on reproductive freedom. My God, what freedom else would you take away? Look,
whoa!
It's a decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court majority wrote the following, and with all due respect, justices, women are not without electoral power. Electoral or political power. You're about to realize just how much you're right about that.
Got him.
Wow.
You don't really see a president target the Supreme Court like that, right?
Never.
Yeah.
Or not pointedly target their opponents. Except for Donald Trump. This is unlike.
Bragging about overturning Roe v. Wade have no clue about the power of women. But they found out when reproductive freedom was on the ballot. We won in 2022 and 2020, and we'll win again in 2024.
Notice what Supreme Court justice is going to seem to be there.
If you, the American people, send me a
Alito
Congress
and
that supports
Thomas.
the right to choose, I promise you, I'll restore Roe v. Wade as the law of the land again.
Hey. I think Mike Johnson's plane just burst through.
Yeah, I think so.
Cannot go back. I'm here tonight to show what I believe is the way forward, because I know how far we come. 4 years ago next week, before I came to office, the country was hit by the worst pandemic and the worst economic crisis in a century. Remember the fear, record losses? Remember the spikes in crime and the murder rate, raging virus that took more than 1 million American lives, of loved ones, millions left behind? A mental health crisis of isolation and loneliness. A president, my predecessor, failed the most basic presidential duty that he owes to American people, the duty to care. I think that's unforgivable. I came to office determined to get us through one of the toughest periods in the nation's history. We have. It doesn't make news.
Do you think this is too divisive, Dad?
Cities and towns. The American
do you think
people are
this
writing
is
the
too
greatest
divisive?
comeback
It
story
borders on
never
being too
told.
divisive. But, the rap on Biden has always been he's too weak, he's not strong enough, he doesn't come out with enough power.
Right.
With anybody else, this is probably too much. But
America's comeback is building the future of American possibilities, building an economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down, investing in all America, in all Americans, to make sure everyone has a fair shot, and we leave no one behind. The pandemic no longer controls our lives. The vaccines that saved us from COVID are now being used to beat cancer, turning setback into comeback. That's what America does. That's what America does.
Mike Johnson likes that because he thinks Trump was responsible for the vaccines.
Right.
And that's
I
not
hear the
entirely
economy
wrong.
is on the
Yeah.
brink.
The one good thing he did.
Now our
Yeah, that's the
economy is
one good
literally
thing
the
he
envy
did
of the world.
during the pandemic.
15 million new jobs in just 3 years, a record, a record. Unemployment at 50-year lows.
This was a very
Record
good
16
ticket.
million Americans are
As you
starting
said, he
small
was
businesses. Each
bordering
one
on
is a
maybe
little
being
act
too
of hope.
divisive, but now he's turning to
Yeah.
the more
Historic
positive
job growth
views.
and small
I
business
agree.
growth
That's
for
a good
Black and
move.
Hispanics and Asian Americans. 800,000 new manufacturing jobs in America and counting. Where is it written we can't be the manufacturing capital of the world? We are, we will. More people have health insurance today. More people have health insurance today than ever before. The racial wealth gap is as small as it's been in 20 years. Wages keep going up, inflation keeps coming down. Inflation has dropped from 9% to 3%, the lowest in the world and tending lower. The landing is and will be soft. And now, instead of importing foreign products and exporting American jobs, we're exporting American products and creating American jobs. Right here in America, where they belong. And it takes time, but the American people are beginning to feel it. Consumer studies show consumer confidence is soaring. Buy America has been the law of the land since the 1930s. Past administrations, including my predecessor, including some Democrats as well in the past, failed to buy American. Not anymore. On my watch, federal projects that you fund, like helping build American roads, bridges, and highways, will be made with American products and built by American workers.
Yeah, I think he did a good job of starting going 100 miles an hour and now going to a more positive tone.
Yeah, and he did it, I think, just in time.
Yeah.
I don't think he
The
could have
United
brought
States
any
is investing
more
more in
with the
research and
divisive
development than
stuff.
ever before. During the pandemic, a shortage of semiconductors, chips, that drove up the price of everything from cell phones to automobiles. And by the way, we invented those chips right here in America. Well, instead of having to import them, private companies are now investing billions of dollars to build new chip factories here in America, creating tens of thousands of jobs. Many of those jobs paying $100,000 a year and don't require a college degree. In fact, my policies have attracted $650 billion in private sector investment in clean energy, advanced manufacturing, creating tens of thousands of jobs here in America. And thanks to our bipartisan infrastructure law, 46,000 new projects have been announced all across your communities. And by the way, I noticed some of you strongly voted against it, or they're cheering on that money coming in. I like it.
Yeah, that's true. That's really true.
I'm with you. And if any of you don't want that money in your district, just let me know. Modernizing our roads and bridges, ports and airports, public transit systems.
He's doing pretty well.
Removing poisonous lead pipes so every child can drink clean water.
And there's not and there's not much heckling from the other side, really. And the heckling that has come, he's done a pretty good job at getting past it.
For every American, no matter where you live,
some
urban,
applause.
suburban, or rural
Not much,
communities,
but some
in
from
red
the other
states
side.
and blue states.
Even Mike
Record
Johnson
investments in
from time
tribal
to time
communities.
has given some tepid
Because
applause.
of my investment in family farms, because my investment in family farms led by my Secretary of Agriculture who knows more about this than anybody I know, we're better able to stay in the family for those farms and their children and grandchildren won't have to leave home to make a living. It's transformative. The great comeback story is Belvedere, Illinois, home to an auto plant for nearly 60 years. Before I came to office, the plant was on its way to shutting down. Thousands of workers feared for their livelihoods. Hope was fading. Then I was elected to office, and we raised the Belvedere repeatedly with auto companies, knowing unions would make all the difference. The UAW worked like hell to keep the plant open and get these jobs back, and together we succeeded. Instead of auto factories shutting down, auto factories reopening, and new state-of-the-art battery factories being built to power those cars there at the same.
Wow, he's on fire. Even with this more bland stuff, he'd be selling it pretty well. This is by far the best you've ever seen him.
The folks of Belvedere, I say, instead of your town being left behind, your community is moving forward again. Because instead of watching auto jobs in the future go overseas, 4,000 union jobs with higher wages are building the future in Belvedere right here in America. Here tonight is UAW President Shawn Fain, a great friend and a great labor leader. Shawn, where are you? Stand up. And Dawn Sims, a third-generation worker, UAW worker at Belvedere. Shawn, I was proud to be the first president to stand on the picket line, and today, Dawn has a good job in her hometown, providing stability for her family and pride and dignity as well. Showing once again, Wall Street didn't build America. They're not bad guys. They didn't build it, though. The middle class built the country, and unions built the middle class.
Woo!
That was a good save of like attacking Wall Street, but also not attacking Wall Street, but also boosting the middle class.
Yeah, it was well done. He doesn't need any more attacks, really.
When America gets knocked down, we get back up. We keep going. That's America.
Johnny Hoyer.
That's you, the American people. It's because of you America's coming back. It's because of you our future is brighter. It's because of you that tonight we can proudly say the state of our union is strong and getting stronger. Tonight, I want to talk about the future of possibility.
You know, if this will do nothing else,
together.
This will strengthen him with all those Democrats who are not enthusiastic, who have doubts. Some say they might not be voting. This, I think, will bolster him with doubtful Democrats.
Every one of your states in the state of the United States combined. And I represented it for 36 years. I'm not anti-corporation, but I grew up in a home where trickle-down economics didn't put much on my dad's kitchen table. That's why I determined to turn things around so middle class does well. When they do well, the poor are way up and the wealthy still do very well. We all do well. And there's more to do to make sure you're feeling the benefits of all we're doing. Americans pay more for prescription drugs than anywhere in the world. It's wrong, and I'm ending it.
He does have a proposal for that, but the Republicans have been blocking.
Right.
Well, I proposed and signed, not one of you Republican buddies voted for it. We finally beat Big Pharma. Instead of paying $400 a month or thereabouts for insulin with diabetes, and it only costs $10 to make, they only get paid $35 a month now and still make a healthy profit. And I want to, but what to do next? I want to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month for every American who needs it. Everyone. For years, people have talked about it, but finally we got it done and gave Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices on prescription drugs, just like the VA is able to do for veterans. That's not just saving seniors money, it's saving taxpayers money. We cut the federal deficit by $160 billion. Because Medicare will no longer have to pay those exorbitant prices to Big Pharma. This year, Medicare is negotiating lower prices for some of the costliest drugs on the market to treat everything from heart disease to arthritis. It's now time to go further and give Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices for 500 different drugs over the next decade. They're making a lot of money, guys. And they'll still be extremely profitable. Will not only save lives, it will save taxpayers another $200 billion. Starting next year, the same law caps total prescription drug costs for seniors on Medicare at $2,000 a year, even for expensive cancer drugs that cost $10,000, $12,000, $15,000. Now I want to cap prescription drug costs at $2,000 a year for everyone. Folks, I'm going to get in trouble for saying that, but if you want to get an Air Force One and fly to Toronto, Berlin, Moscow, well, even Moscow, probably. And bring your prescription with you, and I promise you I'll get it for you for 40% the cost you're paying now. Same company, same drug, same place. Folks, the Affordable Care Act.
That was a little bit of a flub.
The old Obamacare.
Yeah, we recovered those.
It's still a very big deal. Over 100 million of you can no longer be denied health insurance because of pre-existing condition. Well, my predecessor, and many in this chamber, want to take this prescription drug away by repealing the Affordable Care Act. I'm not going to let that happen. We stopped you 50 times before, and we'll stop you again. Wow. In fact, I'm not only protecting it, I'm expanding it. They enacted tax credits of $800 per person per year, reduce health care costs for millions of working families. That tax credit expires next year. I want to make that savings permanent.
Mike Johnson may have a stroke before this is over.
State the obvious. Women are more than half our population, but research on women's health has always been underfunded. That's why we're launching the first ever White House initiative on women's health research, led by Jill, doing an incredible job as First Lady. We'll pass my plan for $12 billion to transfer women's health research to benefit millions of lives all across America.
Socialism.
Yeah, maybe.
So important to you.
I mean, they're going to say everything they can under the sun to make this speech seem bad. It's not bad. It's not a bad speech.
No, it's not.
But I'm not waiting. I want to
sure.
provide an annual tax credit that will give Americans $400 a month for the next 2 years as mortgage rates come down, to put towards their mortgages when they buy their first home or trade up for a little more space. Just for 2 years. And my administration is also eliminating title insurance on federally backed mortgages. When you refinance your home, you can save $1,000 or more as a consequence. For millions of renters, we're cracking down on big landlords who use antitrust law, who break antitrust laws by price fixing and driving up rents. We've cut red tape so builders can get federally financing, which is already helping build a record 1.7 million new housing units nationwide. Now pass and build and renovate 2 million affordable homes and bring those rents down.
This is great stuff. You're going to say it's a lot more boring than the first 10 minutes.
Sure.
But that's inevitable.
Yeah.
He
To
needs
remain the strongest
pretty soon to
economy in the
pivot to
world,
something else.
we need to have the best
getting
education
a
system in the
bit
world.
druggy.
I think he'll pivot to Israel and Gaza soon.
And I, like
Yeah.
I suspect all of you, want to give a child, every child, a good start by providing access to preschool for 3 and 4 years old. You know, I think I pointed out last year, that children coming from broken homes where there's no books, they're not read to, not spoken to very often, start school, kindergarten or first grade, having heard 1 million fewer words spoken. Well, studies show that children who go to preschool are nearly 50% more likely to finish high school, go on to earn a 2- and 4-year degree, no matter what their background is. I met a year and a half ago with the leaders of the Business Roundtable. They were mad that they were angry, I think, well, they were discussing why I wanted to spend money on education. I pointed out to them as vice president, I met with over 182 of those folks. Don't hold me to the exact number. And I asked them what they need most, the CEOs. And you've had the same experience on both sides of the aisle. They say a better educated workforce, right? So I looked at them and I say, I come from Delaware. DuPont used to be the 8th largest corporation in the world. And every new enterprise they bought, they educated the workforce to that enterprise. But none of you do that anymore. Why are you angry with me providing you the opportunity for the best educated workforce in the world? And they all looked at me and said, I think you're right. I want to expand high-quality tutoring and summer learning to see that every child learns to read by 3rd grade. I'm also connecting local businesses and high schools so students get hands-on experience and a path to a good-paying job, whether or not they go to college. And I want to make sure the college is more affordable. Let's continue increasing the Pell Grants to working and middle-class families and increase record investments in HBCUs and minority-serving institutions, including Hispanic institutions. And I was told I couldn't universally just change the way in which we dealt with student loans. I fixed 2 student loan programs that already existed to reduce the burden of student debt for nearly 4 million Americans, including nurses, firefighters, and others in public service. Like Keenan Jones, a public educator from Minnesota, who's here with us tonight. Keenan, where are you? Keenan, thank you. He's educated hundreds of students so they can go to college. Now he's able to help, after debt forgiveness, get his own daughter to college.
Good example.
Yes, it is.
And folks, look. Such
Democrats
relief is
are getting
good for the
plenty of
economy because
exercise.
folks are now able to buy a home, start a business, start a family. While we're at it, I want to give public school teachers a raise.
Yeah, school teachers are the most underpaid, not college teachers, but at every other level, they're the most underpaid workers in America.
And overworked.
And overworked, yes. That's a bad combo.
By the way, the first couple of years, we cut the deficit. Now, let me speak to the question of fundamental fairness for all Americans. I've been delivering real results in fiscally responsible ways. We've already cut the federal deficit. We've already cut the federal deficit over $1 trillion. I signed the bipartisan deal to cut another $1 trillion in the next decade. It's my goal to cut the federal deficit another $3 trillion by making big corporations and very wealthy finally beginning to pay their fair share.
Oh, love it.
Look,
There's AOC.
I'm a capitalist. If you want to make or can make a million or millions of bucks, that's great. Just pay your fair share in taxes. A fair tax code is how we invest things that make this country great. Healthcare, education, defense, and so much more. But here's the deal. The last administration enacted a $2 trillion tax cut, overwhelmingly benefit the top 1%, the very wealthy and the biggest corporations, and exploded the federal deficit. They added more to the national debt than any presidential term in American history. Check the numbers. Folks at home, does anybody really think the tax code is fair? Do you really think the wealthy and big corporations need another $2 trillion tax break? I sure don't. I'm going to keep fighting like hell to make it fair. Under my plan, nobody earning less than $400,000 a year will pay an additional penny in federal taxes. Nobody, not one penny. And they haven't yet.
Nice call.
In fact, the child tax credit I passed during the pandemic cut taxes for millions of working families and cut child poverty in half. Restore that child tax credit. No child should go hungry in this country. The way to make the tax code fair is to make big corporations and the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Remember in 2020, 55 of the biggest companies in America made $40 billion and paid zero in federal income tax. Zero. Not anymore. Thanks to the law I wrote and we signed, big companies have to pay a minimum of 15%. But that's still less than working people pay in federal taxes. It's time to raise corporate minimum tax to at least 21%. So every big corporation finally begins to pay their fair share. I also want to end tax breaks for big pharma, big oil, private jets, massive executive pay when it's only supposed to be $1 million that can be deducted. They can pay them $20 million if they want, but deduct $1 million. End it now. You know, there are 1,000 billionaires in America. You know what the average federal tax is for those billionaires? No. They're making great sacrifices, 8.2%. That's far less than the vast majority of Americans pay. No billionaire should pay a lower federal tax rate than a teacher, a sanitation worker, or a nurse.
Yes, I agree.
Very true. Benny Thompson.
Thanks, Dad.
I propose
Yeah.
a minimum
You know what
tax for
committee he
billionaires
headed?
of 25%, just
January
25%. You know what that would
You're right on
raise?
it.
That would raise $500 billion over the next 10 years. And imagine what that could do for America. Imagine a future with affordable child care. Millions of families can get they need to go to work to help grow the economy. Imagine a future with paid leave, because no one should have to choose between working and taking care of their sick family member. Imagine the future of home care and elder care, and people living with disabilities so they can stay in their homes and family caregivers can finally get the pay they deserve. Tonight, let's all agree once again to stand up for seniors. Many of my friends on the other side of the aisle want to put Social Security on the chopping block. If anyone here tries to cut Social Security, Medicare, or raise the retirement age, I will stop you.
He's being kind of funny, the way his delivery is. His delivery has been funny at times. Like, it works. Like, I will stop you.
Pay more into Social Security than millionaires and billionaires do. It's not fair. We have two ways to go. Republicans can cut Social Security and give more tax breaks to the wealthy. That's the proposal. Oh, no. You guys don't want another $2 trillion tax cut? I kind of thought that's what your plan was. Well, that's good to hear. You're not going to cut another $2 trillion for the super wealthy. That's good to hear. I'll protect and strengthen Social Security and make the wealthy pay their fair share.
Really good.
Look,
Ad lib.
too many corporations raise prices to pad their profits, charging more and more for less and less. That's why we're cracking down on corporations that engage in price gouging and deception, from food to healthcare to housing. In fact, the snack companies think you won't notice if they change the size of the bag and put a hell of a lot fewer, same size bag, put fewer chips in it. No, I'm not joking. It's called shrinkflation.
What's happening to my chips, Sam?
And stop this.
Oh.
I really mean it.
Let's go Casey, right?
You probably all saw that commercial on Snickers bars. You get charged the same amount, and you got about, I don't know, 10% fewer Snickers in it.
What?
Look, I'm also
That's
getting
why
rid
you
of
lost
junk
weight,
fees.
Sam.
Those hidden fees at the end of your bill that are there without your knowledge. My administration announced we're cutting credit card late fees from $32 to $8. Banks and credit card companies
I did a whole column on
are
that, on
allowed
all these
to
hidden
charge what
fees.
it costs them.
And I found that for most Americans, they paid more in hidden fees than they paid in federal taxes.
Jeez.
They don't like it. The credit card companies don't like it. But I'm saving American families
Credit card fees,
$20 billion
bank
a year
fees,
with all the junk
fees if you
I'm eliminating.
rent, fees if you go to a hotel, fees if you buy a
Folks at
house,
home.
fees if you buy a car. There's so
That's why
many.
the banks are so mad. It's $20 billion in profit. I'm not stopping there. My administration has proposed rules to make cable, travel, utilities, and online ticket sellers tell you the total price up front so there are no surprises. It matters. It matters. And so does this. In November, my team began serious negotiation with a bipartisan group of senators. The result was a bipartisan bill with the toughest set of border security reforms we've ever seen. Oh, you don't think so? Oh, you don't like that bill, huh? That conservatives got together and said it was a good bill? I'll be darned. That's amazing. That bipartisan bill would hire 1,500 more security agents and officers, 100 more immigration judges to help tackle the backload of 2 million cases, 4,300 more asylum officers, and new policies so they can resolve cases in 6 months instead of 6 years now.
Wow, that was good. He said that's true. He said that's true.
What are you against?
Trump scuttled that bill without even seeing what was in it.
100 more
He wants to
high-tech
keep the
drug
chaos
detection
going
machines
so he
to
can exploit
significantly
it
increase the
politically.
ability to screen and stop vehicles smuggling fentanyl into America. That's killing thousands of children. This bill would save lives and bring order to the border. It will also give me and any new president new emergency authority to temporarily shut down the border when the number of migrants at the border is overwhelming. The Border Patrol Union has endorsed this bill. The Federal Chamber of Commerce is, yeah. You're saying low. Look at the facts. I know.
Wow, he's doing really good with the hecklers.
Yeah.
Look at Mike Johnson. He's like, ugh.
I believe that given the opportunity for a majority in the House and Senate would endorse the bill as well, a majority right now. But unfortunately, politics has derailed this bill so far. I'm told my predecessor called members of Congress in the Senate to demand they block the bill. He feels political win, he viewed it as a political win for me and a political loser for him. It's not about him, it's not about me. I'd be a winner, not really. Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand. But look, if we change the dynamic at the border, people pay these smugglers $8,000 to get across the border.
This is really smart.
Because they know
Because
if they get by,
as you saw at the beginning,
let into the
Republicans
country,
are trying to make
6
a
to 8
big
years
issue
before they have a
out of
hearing.
this killing, and he's trying to
And
turn
it's
it
worth
around.
taking the chance of the $8,000. But if it's only 6 weeks, the idea is it's highly unlikely that people will pay that money and come all that way, knowing that they'll be able to be kicked out quickly. Folks, I would respectfully suggest my Republican friends owe it to the American people, get this bill done. We need to act now.
I might have gone right to this after
And if
his
my predecessors
opening.
watching,
Yeah.
instead of paying
This is what
politics
people are really focused on.
and pressuring members of Congress to block the bill, join
You know,
me
40 minutes or
telling
so
the
into
Congress
the
to pass
speech.
it. We can do it together, but that's what here's what he will not do. I will not demonize immigrants saying they are poison in the blood of our country. I will not separate families.
Now, he should have gone for this early. Very powerful.
I will not ban people because of their faith. Unlike my predecessor on my first day in office, I introduced a comprehensive bill to fix our immigration system. Take a look at it. It has all these and more. Secure the border. Provide a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, and so much more. But unlike my predecessor, I know who we are as Americans. We're the only nation in the world with a heart and soul that draws from old and new. Home to Native Americans, whose ancestors have been here for thousands of years. Home to people of from every place on earth. They came freely. Some came in chains. Some came when famine struck, like my ancestral family in Ireland. Some to flee persecution, to chase dreams that are impossible anywhere but here in America. That's America. And we all come from somewhere, but we're all American.
I think this is his best stuff after the opening.
Yeah.
Too bad it's better than 40 minutes in.
We have a simple choice about fixing the border, or we can fix it. I'm ready to fix it. Send me the border bill now. A transformational moment in history happened 59 years ago
with
today
this camera on the
in Selma,
Republicans,
Alabama.
but it's not a good look.
Hundreds of foot
No, they
soldiers
don't
for
look very
justice
good.
marching
Yeah.
across
White
the Edmund
men.
Pettus Bridge,
That's all they
named
seem to
after
be
the Grand
showing on
Dragon
the
of the Ku Klux
Republican
Klan.
side. You know,
To claim their fundamental right to
one black
vote.
guy.
They were beaten, they were bloody, and left for dead. Our late friend and former colleague, John Lewis, was on that march. We miss him.
Ah, he stood, finally. God dang.
Oh, we got him up.
Our other marchers, both in the gallery and on the floor, including Betty Mae Fikes, known as the voice of Selma, the daughter of gospel singers and preachers. She sang songs of prayer and protest on that bloody Sunday to help shake the nation's conscience. 5 months later, the Voting Rights Act passed and was signed into law. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But 59 years later, their forces taking us back.
It's interesting that Republicans only stand and clap for racial issues when they happen like 50, 60 years ago. When they're more modern issues, they sit there all grumpy. But if it happened 50, 60 years ago, they're willing to stand and clap.
And all the heroes that march with him, then it's time to do more than talk. Pass Pass the Freedom to Vote Act, the John Lewis Voting Right Act. And stop denying another core value of America, our diversity across American life. Banning books, it's wrong. Instead of erasing history, let's make history. I want to protect fundamental rights. Pass the Equality Act. And my message to transgender Americans, I have your back.
There's the same one African American.
Pass the PRO Act for workers' rights. Raise the federal minimum wage, because every worker has a right to a decent living more than $7 an hour. We're also making history by confronting the climate crisis, not denying it. I don't think any of you think there's no longer a climate crisis. At least I hope you don't. I'm taking the most significant action ever on climate in the history of the world. I'm cutting our carbon emissions in half by 2030, creating tens of thousands of clean energy jobs, like the IBEW work is building and installing 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations. Conserving 30% of America's lands and waters by 2030. And taking action on environmental justice, fence line communities smothered by the legacy of pollution. A pattern after the Peace Corps and AmeriCorps.
That was a big
I
yawn,
launched
Dad.
the Climate Corps to put 20,000 young people to work in the forefront of our clean energy future. I'll triple that number in a decade. To state the obvious, all Americans deserve the freedom to be safe. And America is safer today than when I took office. Year before I took office, murder rates went up 30%. 30% they went up. The biggest increase in history. It was then, through my American Rescue Plan, which every American voted against, I might add, we made the largest investment in public safety ever. Last year, the murder rate saw the sharpest decrease in history. Violent crime fell to one of its lowest levels in more than 50 years. But we have more to do. We have to help cities invest in more community police officers, more mental health workers, more community violence intervention. Give communities the tool to crack down on gun crime, retail crime, and carjacking. Keep building trust, as they've been doing by taking executive action on police reform and calling for it to be the law of the land. Directing my cabinet to review the federal classification of marijuana and expunging thousands of convictions for the mere possession, because no one should be jailed for simply using or have it on their record. Take on crimes of domestic violence. I'm ramping up the federal enforcement of the Violence Against Women Act that I proudly wrote when I was a senator, so we can finally end the scourge against women in America. There are other kinds of violence I want to stop. With us tonight is Jasmine, whose 9-year-old sister Jackie was murdered with 21 classmates and teachers in an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. Very soon after that happened, Jill and I went to Uvalde for a couple of days. We spent hours and hours with each of the families. We heard their message, so everyone in this room, in this chamber, could hear the same message. The constant refrain, and I was there for hours meeting with every family. They said, do something. Do something. Well, I did do something by establishing the first ever Office of Gun Violence Prevention in the White House, that the Vice President is leading the charge. Thank you for doing it. Meanwhile, my predecessor told the NRA he's proud he did nothing on guns when he was president. After another shooting in Iowa recently, he said, when asked what to do about it, he said, just get over it. There was his quote, just get over it. I say, stop it. Stop it, stop it, stop it. I'm proud we beat the NRA when I signed the most significant gun safety law in nearly 30 years because of this Congress.
But that was a powerful
We now
moment.
must beat the NRA again.
Yes, it was.
I'm demanding a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Pass universal background checks. None of this. I taught the Second Amendment for 12 years. None of this violates the Second Amendment or vilifies responsible gun owners. You know, as we manage challenges at home, we're also managing crises abroad, including in the Middle East. I know the last 5 months have been gut-wrenching for so many people, for the Israeli people, for the Palestinian people.
This is going to be his
so many
final
here in America.
segment, I think.
This crisis began on October 7th with a massacre by a
It's been
terrorist
going on
group called
for
Hamas,
over
as you all
50
know.
minutes.
1,200 innocent people, women and girls, men and boys, slaughtered after enduring sexual violence. The deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust. And 250 hostages taken. Here in this chamber tonight are families whose loved ones are still being held by Hamas. I pledge to all the families that we will not rest until we bring every one of your loved ones home. We also
While you're blocking into Israel, Mike Johnson, if you're applauding this.
we will also work around the clock to bring home Evan and Paul, Americans being unjustly detained by the Russians and others around the world. Israel has the right to go after Hamas.
What's the parents?
Hamas ended this conflict by releasing hostages, laying down arms, could end it by releasing the hostages, laying down arms, and surrendering those responsible for October 7th. But Israel has Israel has a added burden because Hamas hides and operates among the civilian population like cowards, under hospitals, daycare centers, and all the like. Israel also has a fundamental responsibility, though, to protect innocent civilians in Gaza.
That was good.
That was good.
This war has taken a greater toll on innocent civilians than all previous wars in Gaza combined. More than 30,000 Palestinians have been killed, most of whom are not Hamas. Thousands and thousands of innocents, women and children, girls and boys, also orphaned. Nearly 2 million more Palestinians under bombardment or displacement. Homes destroyed, neighborhoods in rubble, cities in ruin. Families without food, water, medicine. It's heartbreaking. I've been working nonstop to establish an immediate ceasefire that would last for 6 weeks to get all the prisoners released, all the hostages released, to get the hostages home and ease the intolerable and humanitarian crisis and build toward an enduring, something more enduring. The United States has been leading international efforts to get more humanitarian assistance to Gaza. Tonight, I'm directing the U.S. military to lead an emergency mission to establish a temporary pier in the Mediterranean on the coast of Gaza that can receive large shipments carrying food, water, medicine, and temporary shelters. No U.S. boots will be on the ground. A temporary pier will enable a massive increase in the amount of humanitarian assistance getting into Gaza every day.
So far, he's doing as best as he could on this issue, I feel.
Yeah, it's just.
And Israel must do its part.
Good answer to it.
Israel must allow more aid into Gaza to ensure humanitarian workers aren't caught in the crossfire. And they're announcing they're going to have a crossing in northern Gaza. To the leadership of Israel, I say this: humanitarian assistance cannot be a secondary consideration or a bargaining chip. Protecting and saving innocent lives has to be a priority. As we look to the future, The only real solution to the situation is a two-state solution over time.
Absolutely. It may not work, but there's nothing else. Neither one is needed.
Yeah.
As a lifelong supporter of Israel, my entire career, no one has a stronger record with Israel than I do. I challenge any of you here. I'm the only American president of Israel in wartime, but there is no other path that guarantees Israel's security and democracy. There is no other path that guarantees Palestinians can live in peace with peace and dignity. And there's no other path that guarantees peace between Israel and all of its neighbors, including Saudi Arabia, with whom I'm talking. Creating stability in the Middle East also means containing the threat posed by Iran. That's why I built a coalition of more than a dozen countries to defend international shipping and freedom of navigation in the Red Sea. I've ordered strikes to degrade the Houthi capability and defend U.S. forces in the region. As Commander-in-Chief, I will not hesitate to direct further measures to protect our people and our military personnel. For years, I've heard many of my Republican and Democratic friends say that China is on the rise and America is falling behind. They've got it backwards. I've been saying it for over 4 years, even when I wasn't president. America's rising. We have the best economy in the world. And since I've come to office, our GDP is up, our trade deficit with China is down to the lowest point in over a decade. And we're standing up against China's unfair economic practices. We're standing up for peace and stability across the Taiwan Straits.
Thanks, Dad.
I've revitalized our partnership and alliance in the Pacific.
Sure.
India, Australia, Japan, South Korea, Pacific Islands.
Wow, generals.
I've made sure
pretty
the most advanced American technologies can't be used in China, not allowing to trade them there. Frankly, for all this tough talk on China, it never occurred to my predecessor to do any of that. I want competition with China, not conflict. And we're in a stronger position to win the conflict of the 21st century against China than anyone else, for that matter, than any time as well. Here at home, I've signed over 400 bipartisan bills, but there's more to pass my unity agenda. Strengthen penalties on fentanyl trafficking. You don't want to do that, huh? Pass bipartisan privacy legislation to protect our children online. Harness the promise of AI to protect us from peril. Ban AI voice impersonations and more. And keep our truly sacred obligation to train and equip those who send into harm's way.
Climate change or AI?
Them and their families
I don't
when they
know.
come home, and when they don't. That's why the song Support and Help of Dennis and the VA, I signed the PACT Act. One of the most significant laws ever, helping millions of veterans exposed to toxins who now are battling more than 100 different cancers.
He's hit the hour mark.
Many of them don't come home, but we owe them and their families support. We owe it to ourselves to keep supporting our new health research agency called ARPA-H.
Member Canada Drew says, Dad, AI will fix climate change, then kill us.
Okay.
Cancer as we know it, and we will.
I don't think I have to worry about that, but you do.
Let me close with this. Yeah. I know you don't want to hear any more, Lindsay, but I got to say a few more things. I know it may not look like it, but I've been around a while. When you get to be my age, certain things become clearer than ever. I know the American story. Again and again, I've seen the contest between competing forces in the battle for the soul of our nation. Between those who want to pull America back to the past and
Address
those
the
who want to move
age issue
America
head
into the
on.
future. My lifetime has taught me to embrace freedom and democracy, a future based on core
he's no Ronald
values
Reagan,
that
but
have defined
he's
America:
doing what he can.
honesty, decency, dignity, equality, to respect everyone, to give everyone a fair shot, to give hate no safe harbor.
Susan Collins and Lindsey Graham.
Now other people my age
Thank
see
you,
it
Dad.
differently. The American story of resentment, revenge, and retribution, that's not me. I was born amid World War II when America stood for the freedom of the world. I grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Claymont, Delaware, among working class people who built this country. I watched in horror as two of my heroes, like many of you did, Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy, were assassinated. And their legacies inspired me to pursue a career in service. I left the law firm and became a public defender because my city of Wilmington was the only city in America occupied by the National Guard after Dr. King was assassinated because of the riots. And I became a county councilman almost by accident. I got elected to the United States Senate when I had no intention of running at age 29. Then vice president of our first black president. Now president to the first women vice president.
There's the cane.
Yep.
In my career, I've been told I was too young.
Maxine Waters and Jim Clyburn.
By the way, they didn't let me
Thank
on
you,
the Senate
Dad. Thank
elevators
you.
for votes sometimes. Not a joke.
Did you know that?
Yes.
And I've been told I'm
Oh,
too
you
old.
Maxine Waters?
Yes.
Whether young or old,
Wow.
I've always known what endures. I've known our North Star. The very idea of America is that we're all created equal and deserves to be treated equally throughout our lives. We've never fully lived up to that idea, but we've never walked away from it either. And I won't walk away from it now. I'm optimistic. I really am. I'm optimistic, Nancy. My fellow
You certainly
Americans,
woke up the Democrats.
Yeah.
the issue facing our nation isn't how old we are, it's how old are our ideas. Hate, anger, revenge,
All right.
retribution are the oldest of ideas. But you can't lead America with ancient ideas that only take us back. You lead America, the land of possibilities. You need a vision for the future and what can and should be done. Tonight you've heard mine. I see a future where defending democracy, you don't diminish it. I see a future where we restore the right to choose and protect our freedoms, not take them away. I see a future where the middle class finally has a fair shot and the wealthy have to pay their fair share in taxes. I see a future where we save the planet from the climate crisis and our country from gun violence. Above all, I see a future for all Americans. I see a country for all Americans. And I will always be president for all Americans because I believe in America. I believe in you, the American people. You're the reason we've never been more optimistic about our future than I am now. So let's build the future together. Let's remember who we are. We are the United States of America. And there is nothing beyond our capacity when we act together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
As good as he can do.
That's pretty good.
That's Biden at his best.
That was pretty darn good.
It was really good, and no sign of the doddering old man was there. And he directly took on the age issue the only way he could.
I wouldn't
Very
say
pointed in drawing the contrast with Donald Trump. Very specific in what his policies are and what his vision is for the country. He harped upon the critical issue for Democrats, the freedom to choose, which is not just supported by Democrats, but overwhelmingly supported generally by the American people. He did as good as he could do on the Middle East. Didn't do much on Ukraine. I was a little surprised.
Yeah, but he opened with
He might do
Ukraine.
a little more on that.
But he opened with Ukraine.
He opened with it. That was very strong. That's true. The opening was amazing. I usually start to fall asleep during these openings. They're very slow, they're kind of rote, but boy, he went right at it right after them. My only criticism would be I thought he should have hit immigration sooner, not wait 40 minutes into his speech. Again, I thought he was very good at immigration, but a lot of viewers might have turned off by then. I really want to hear from our viewers. How many viewers do we have still sticking with us?
We have 286 viewers. I think it's our most ever, Dad.
Wow. So,
but hold on. But only 81 likes. What the heck, guys? Give us some likes. There's 286 people watching.
Give us likes. Give us donations and memberships. That's our lifeblood. That keeps us going. I'm doing this totally voluntarily.
All right. What were you about to say, Dad?
I just want to hear from our viewers. I want to hear their questions.
Oh, okay.
It's getting late.
You ready to
We've
start?
been on for over an hour and a half.
What would you give him on a scale of 1 to 10? You can give points. You can give like a 2.3 or a 7.8. What would you give him?
8.5 to 9.
8.5 to 9. Yeah, I think I would give him an 8.8.
Okay, that's the average of 8.5 to 9.
Oh.
I think we're in sync here.
I think for him though, like for Joe Biden at this point in his career,
it was a 10.
That was a 10. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, a 10 for Joe Biden. He's not John F. Kennedy. He's not Franklin Roosevelt. So he's not going to get a 10 compared to everyone.
Right.
But for Biden, that was a 10. And for anyone, I think 8.8 is about right.
Yeah.
And that's a damn high rating.
Yeah, I agree.
Much higher than I thought he would achieve. And he did what he had to do, and that is to show he's up to the job. There's not a hint. One gaffe, a small one, in an hour and a half. That's pretty darn good.
He slurs his word, he stutters, but but the main points of his speech all got through. It wasn't like we missed or like couldn't follow what he was trying to convey,
Exactly. It was very clear, very pointed, very sharp. He did ad lib a little bit, shows he can maneuver on his feet. He's 81. He's going to slur on occasion. One gaffe, it's really nothing. Anyone could do that.
Sure.
I think the biggest takeaway politically from this is he going to quell a lot of doubts among Democrats. He doesn't need to convert Republicans. He's not going to do that. He needs to unite the Democratic Party, and I think this went a long way to doing that.
And here, I think someone said this in the chat, but this is where we're seeing the power of the incumbency key at work. You take this guy away from the election, that speech is almost meaningless, and for at least, especially in terms of the election, right?
Whoever said that is very shrewd.
Yeah.
This is indeed one of the advantages and the reason we have the incumbency, and the reason I've been screaming about how foolish all these pundits are who say, Joe Biden should step down for some mythical younger candidate. Maybe me. I'm younger than Biden. It's absurd. Yeah, I'm younger. Not much.
Right. If Biden's not running, this speech in terms of the Democratic momentum is meaningless in the election.
It's nothing.
Right.
It's zero. That's why you have to have the incumbency key.
Yeah.
And the party contest key. Democrats are not tearing each other apart in the primaries like they did in 2016. Biden is sweeping the primaries, and the so-called protest vote completely fizzled on Super Tuesday. It was nothing.
Yeah.
And I think the protesters who are Democrats are going to take heart from this speech. Even those who don't object to his policy in the Middle East, I think, can take heart.
Right.
He didn't diss the Palestinians at all, except the Hamas terrorists, which rightly so.
Right. All right, you ready to get to some questions?
I am ready and anxious to hear questions. And that was a very sharp comment from whoever said it.
It was Joe Cerniglia. They said, this is the
Very good,
incumbency key at work.
Yes, another Joe.
Let's see here. Thank you, Matthew Millard for the $1. Thank you. Climate teacher John H. for the $10 donation. Let's see. Gosh, I keep losing the top of the chat.
There's Adam Schiff. Shifty Schiff.
Well, he in my state of California, he's going to be
He's going to be the next senator.
Well, I don't know. What's his name?
Come on, you think Steve Garvey's going to beat him? You got to be joking.
Okay. Anthony LaRocco asks, how do you think this speech will affect Republicans?
It won't. And he doesn't need to win Republicans. You know, are very smart. Your mom, my wife, the brilliant political organizer, always said, don't waste your time trying to convert your opposition. It doesn't work. Shore up your own base, most importantly, and then try to move the undecideds, but don't try to move the adamant opposition.
Member Theo Mio says, as a historian, does the professor worry that Biden made his speech too partisan, like a campaign speech? Is that inappropriate or is that unprecedented or inappropriate to go after the Supreme Court like he did?
No, Barack Obama went after the Supreme Court after the 2010 Citizens United decision that opened the floodgates to corporate money in campaigns. And in fact, Justice Alito kind of shook his head when Obama, talked about that and kind of said, he whispered something, but it wasn't positive, I can assure you. We thought, and we both agreed, that it was getting to the point where it might have been too divisive and too partisan. But I think just in the nick of time, he made that switch.
Right. And I think, partisan Republicans are probably going to harp on that. But I think if you look at it objectively, right, I think he switched right at the right moment and didn't go too far down that road.
And as I said, forget about the Republicans. You're not going to convert them. They're going to call this socialism, communism, big government, the usual cliches. Nothing you can do about it. The most important thing he had to do was shore up those shaky Democrats. We don't believe the polls, but 15 to 20% of former Biden voters said, they may not vote for him again. He needs those folks. Doesn't need any crossover Republicans. Yes. Remember, he won by 7 million votes in 2020.
Right. Member Alan Postnick says, do you think this speech will move the needle on the immigration bill?
No, I don't think the Republicans are going to budge on the immigration bill because, as I've said, you've heard this so many times, they don't want an immigration bill, at least not now. They want to keep using the border as a political issue, as we saw with this utterly fabricated, bogus impeachment of Mayorkas, the Homeland Security Secretary. And, it's been forgotten. It's going nowhere. Right. But they want to use the border. They don't have too many issues.
Yeah.
They don't have climate change. They don't have choice. They don't have guns. They don't have taxes. The border is their biggest issue.
They have a lot of fear mongering.
Grousing about inflation, but that's not an issue. They don't have an anti-inflation program.
Member Riley P. asked, what are your thoughts on Mike Johnson not standing for Ukraine?
I thought that's pretty bad. There's blood. There could be blood on Mike Johnson's hands if he keeps blocking aid to Ukraine. That means many Ukrainians are going to be needlessly killed by the genocidal Putin, leader of Russia, and his troops. Needlessly killed because they don't have what they need to defend themselves. That's indefensible. It's like what the America First people wanted to do during World War II. They didn't want to give any aid, led by Mr. Republican, Senator Robert F. Taft. They didn't want to give any aid to the Allies. They voted against Lend-Lease. And if we didn't have Lend-Lease, Hitler would have conquered the Soviet Union and killed 3 million more Jews. It is a disaster to think that American interests are advanced by turning our back to tyranny and murder around the world.
Ben Weinberg wants to know if you think anything Biden said tonight will help him win in November.
Well, as you know, I don't think what politicians say help them win. I
Right.
have my own system, the keys, which is based on governance, but I think it will change the narrative for Democrats.
Do you think this will destroy Trump's confidence for the election? Probably not.
Nothing moves Trump. Absolutely nothing. You know, the guy is the greatest survivor, maybe in the history of the world, surviving 2 impeachments, bragging on television that he assaults women, a civil conviction for sexual assault, 91 felony charges, a civil conviction for running a fraudulent business, on and on and on and on.
Right.
Nothing seems to affect him.
Yeah. I want to thank Tweety Kid for the donation. 22 and Bienvenida Garnett, Karen Content. Thank you all for your donations.
Those are much appreciated. And join as members.
Yes.
It's cheap. It's less than a sandwich per month.
The Alex Treefire asks, what are your thoughts on Katie Porter refusing to concede? I don't know if you
I didn't catch that.
What are your thoughts on Katie Porter in California refusing to concede? I don't know if
I always think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know the details of that, to tell you the truth. What losing politicians, provided it's legitimate, should always concede.
I agree.
I like Katie Porter a lot, by the way.
Me too, yeah.
Star.
Yeah, I think that's a dangerous and a slippery slope.
Yeah, it's a really bad thing to do.
Mike DeNicola says, hi, Alan. I was wondering if the uncommitted Dem primary vote would flip the no primary key false. And also, do you think social unrest caused by Gaza could occur, which would then turn the no social unrest key?
Not close in either one.
Right.
If you read my book, you'll see that opposition to the nominee has to at least reach 1/3 of the primary vote. The opposition to Biden isn't even on average hitting 10%, not close to turning the keys. And the sporadic protests about Gaza are not close to turning the social unrest key. That has to be the kind of social unrest that's so widespread and so significant that it threatens the stability of the country. There are always protests, but we're nowhere near turning that key. Look at how it's been, read my book, and look at how it's been turned since 1860.
Let's see. Sour Lemons asks, hey, Alan, is July most likely the month for your prediction or August?
You're really trying to pin me down.
Yep.
I can't be pinned down that finely. July or August, I can't say which month because I can't predict what's going to happen in Ukraine or Gaza or with the RFK candidacy over the next few months.
Right.
I can predict based on the keys, but I can't predict what's going to happen in a fluid situation like this to affect the keys. You see the difference, all of you?
I see the difference, Dad. I can answer for them.
Good.
I see the difference.
Good.
Does Gallego have a better chance now that Sinema is retiring? And while you answer
Absolutely.
that, I'm going to go to the restroom. So just keep talking until I'm back.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a big gift to the Democrat Gallego, because although Sinema, left the Democratic Party to become an independent, she still caucused with the Democrats, and most people still view her as a Democrat. And Gallego did not want Sinema on the ballot because he believed that she would draw votes from him, the Democrat. Now he has a clean shot at Kerry Lake, who's a Donald Trump in heels, as much of a diehard believer in the big lie that the 2020 election was stolen, including stolen in her state in Arizona, even though time and time and time again, she gets slapped down by the Arizona courts, which are not loaded with liberals, mind you. Arizona over time has been primarily a Republican state, and she keeps getting slapped down, not in a minor way, but in a very significant, very caustic way. The courts have said, basically, you're just fabricating all this. You have no basis for the charges that you're making, just as the courts.
Okay, I'm back.
When Donald Trump went to the courts, basically said the same thing. So I think Gallego is thanking his lucky stars
Yeah.
that Sinema is out of this race and he has a 1-to-1 against Kerry Lake. Doesn't mean it's going to be a cakewalk because, as I said, the last election notwithstanding, Arizona over these many decades has been a Republican state. And so, going up against any Republican, it's not an automatic win for the Democrat Gallego.
Right.
But I think he's very happy to have a one-on-one.
Tulak Horde is asking a bunch of questions about dictators and America's role as the quote-unquote world cops. So he says, what do you think about the idea that we shouldn't be the world cops because we support horrible dictators all the time, some just as bad as Putin?
I have written about this. I've been very critical of those policies that have supported dictators, in Latin America, in Africa, in the Far East. I'm not just an automatic cheerleader for American policies, but time and again, in very critical situations, America has stood up to the dictators. Ronald Reagan standing up to the Soviet dictators. Franklin Roosevelt standing up to Hitler, Mussolini, and Tojo in Japan. And more recently, Joe Biden standing up against the dictator Vladimir Putin. So while I am certainly critical of many aspects of American foreign policy, there are also things to be proud of. So I think you have to criticize where criticism is due, but also applaud where applause is due.
Ezra Kirkpatrick, he has thought about using a model for betting, for sports betting, but he's never actually done it. Right, Dad?
I've been asked many times,
Yeah.
and I've always said no, because I don't want to get involved in the gambling industry. I don't want to wind up in cement overshoes at the bottom of the Potomac River.
Well, sports gambling is legal now, so it's different than when you were younger. But thank you, Canada.
I was going to say when I was young. Yeah. I'm just not interested. I mean, I am interested. And if you want to do the legwork, I'll provide the brain power, Sam.
Okay, there you go.
There's a lot of work to do to, do the analysis.
Yeah. Thank you, Canada Drew, for becoming a member. Thank you, Matt
All
Millard,
right.
for
What do we need?
Quiet. I'm talking, man. Thank you, Matt Millard, for your donations. Thank you, Miles Wolf, for your donation. Thank you, Adam Brandt, for your donation. They say sorry because I banned them for a second. Look, I'm only going to put people in timeouts if they get too aggressive in the chat. If they're saying cuss words, if they're being too aggressive towards other, you'll get a timeout. Let's see.
Sam?
Yes.
How long have we been doing this now? 6 months?
I think, yeah, I think like 7 months now.
And how many curse words have you heard me say in 7 months?
0.
You can say things without being vulgar and cursing.
Yes. I mean, most of the time I let people say what they want in the chat and debate ideas and talk ideas. But if you start calling people names, cussing, just being way too aggressive, I'm gonna put you in a ban. Sean P asked, now that we have passed Super Tuesday, would you say Biden has won the inter-party fight key, or are you not saying yet?
I have said it 100%. There's no one is going to come close to the 1/3 threshold.
Right.
They may hit the 10% threshold, but that's locked in.
A PAC supporting RFK Jr. has gathered enough signatures in Arizona, Nevada, Michigan to appear on the ballot. Do you think this is legal and he will really get on the ballot?
I have no idea whether it's legal. I don't know the details of how he got those signatures. If he got them legally, he absolutely deserves and merits to be on the ballot. But I have no information about the details of how he did it.
If you're a member and you asked a question earlier in the stream, I've lost the earlier chat. So just ask it again if I haven't asked your question yet.
Right, and we're getting close to 2 hours and I'm kind of winding down.
Yes,
so maybe 2 or 3 more questions.
Yes. Thoughts on Nikki refusing to endorse Trump?
Is that so? I'm not sure.
I
thought
didn't know that
maybe
either. Yeah, I didn't know that either.
I'm not sure about that. I thought just recently she did say she would vote for Trump, as did Mitch McConnell. So I need to fact check that.
Should there be two democratic superpowers at all times, at least for innovation's sake, and in case one falls to tyranny?
I advocate as many democratic powers, superpowers, as you possibly can have. Unfortunately, The Economist, which tracks these things very closely, says the world is moving in the opposite direction. The world is becoming less democratic and more autocratic, as we've seen in places like India, the world's largest democracy, or in Hungary, an important nation in Europe, as we've seen in Ecuador. So unfortunately, the trend's in the wrong direction. As I've said many times, democracy is precious. And like all precious things, it can be destroyed. For most of human history, there have been no democracies. There's been a very brief moment of democracy flourishing, and we're in danger, sadly, of democracy withering, including here in America.
Would Trump have lost key 2 with the primary results as they were if he were the incumbent?
I haven't followed it that closely because it's irrelevant to the keys.
Right.
I don't think so, but I didn't tally the numbers because there are no keys for the challenging party candidate.
Right.
But I don't think so.
RFK Jr. is running at over 10% in multiple polls. Is it too early to topple the third party key?
Yes, he's all over the place in polls. I've seen him, well over 10%, and I've seen him well under 10%. There's been no stability with respect to RFK Jr. That's why I say that key's shaky, but still uncertain until we get some stability in the RFK Jr. candidacy.
Right.
Biden is still going. This is amazing. That's another good sign, in terms of the age issue.
Ross Goldberg asked, most voters still don't think Biden has done much as president. Does that mean that Biden, having secured the major policy change, may not have any positive effect for him in the 2024 election?
Policy change key, it's one key, and it does have a positive for Biden. If Biden hadn't made policy change and had kind of parroted what Trump did, he'd be dead in the water in the Democratic Party.
I guess what he's saying, does public opinion sway the policy keys? No.
It does not. For example, in 2010, for the 2012 election, I gave Barack Obama the policy change key for the Affordable Care Act. And I was challenged by a lot of critics who said you can't give him the key because the Affordable Care Act at that time in 2012 was unpopular. A majority of the American people were against it. And I kept saying, it's policy change. It doesn't turn on the popularity of the change.
Right.
The reason we have the key, as I said, if you don't achieve the policy change, you're not going to be able to rally members of your own party.
Elemental Bot says, how can I get my friends to vote who don't seem to care about politics or focus on Biden's problems and downplay Trump?
I think have them watch this. This was the best refutation
Good point.
of the notion that Biden isn't up to the job of being president, and have them look at some of the things that Trump has said, such as, I'm going to be a dictator on day one. I'm going to suspend the Constitution if necessary. Immigrants are poisoning the blood of the country. I'm going to use the federal government to go after my enemies. That's what Nixon did. Nixon had the enemies list, and he was notorious for that. So you got to show them the facts. And then you can remind them what Lichtman has said when he first voted in 1968. A lot of his young friends were in the same position, saying, Humphrey's too close to Johnson. We really don't care. It's still the war. They didn't vote. They voted for a third party. And we got Richard Nixon, who prolonged the war in Vietnam for 6 years and almost destroyed our democracy.
There you have it. How you feel? How many more? We
Two more
got
questions.
Sean Matthew asks, you said Miguel Estrada had zero chance of being confirmed. Do you mind expanding on that? And what about his judicial philosophy does not appeal to you?
It wasn't judicial philosophy. He was caught in scandals and had to resign. That's why I said he wasn't going to get in the court. The political philosophy doesn't decide who gets in the court. Republicans, have different political philosophies from Democrats. So Republicans appoint those who fit their philosophy, and Democrats do likewise. That's why the hijacking of Merrick Garland was so important.
Curtis asks, what do you think about Super Tuesday metrics / polls?
I'm not sure exactly what you're driving at, but the big takeaway from Super Tuesday for me is Biden locks up key number 2, the party contest key, and that Nikki Haley finally bows to the inevitable and drops out.
All right.
And the other thing, you mentioned the polls. The one thing I cared about in the polls that I thought had some insight was polling show anywhere from a quarter to a third of Republican voters, Republican primary voters, the hardcore, said if Donald Trump is convicted of a felony, he's not fit to serve in office. Now, whether that's going to hold or not, I don't know, but that's pretty chilling for Trump, who's about to go on trial in less than 3 weeks in New York for some 30 felony counts in what I consider an open and shut case. And the media has totally misrepresented this case. They said it's the hush money case. It is not a hush money case, Sam. You know this. Donald Trump is not on trial for paying hush money. This is an election fraud trial, just like most of the others. Donald Trump is on trial for fraudulently misrepresenting the payment to Stormy Daniels to silence her allegations of an affair, fraudulently portraying it as a business expense to conceal what he was really doing. Michael Cohen went to jail for that. And if you think Michael Cohen initiated this on his own, then I've got a big bridge in my hometown of Brooklyn I'd love to sell to you.
You love that one.
One more question.
All right. I'm going to ask a question from Pierre Holmes. I want to give a quick shout out to Pierre Holmes because he does all of the time stamping for our last few live streams, and it's been incredibly helpful. So shout out to Pierre Holmes. And Sean P. just became a member. Thank you, Sean P. Pierre asked, there was reporting from MSNBC that Donald Trump was considering giving the GOP response to Biden's State of the Union. What are your thoughts on that one-time idea of him responding to Biden?
Donald Trump would have loved it. He never has seen a TV camera he didn't fall in love with, but that's not usually what the response is. It's usually like this Representative Britt, someone young, somewhat obscure person that they want to build up,
right,
and promote.
All right. So with that, I think we'll start wrapping up. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate you watching. Become a member, but remember also watching and engaging with the channel is totally free. Any final thoughts, Dad, on the State of the Union address by President Joe Biden?
I thought it was as good as Biden can do. It's not going to move Republicans, but that's irrelevant. I think its main effect is going to be to shore up Biden's support in his own Democratic Party base. By the way, he's still going.
Yeah.
I think that's, he's not run off to go to bed.
Yeah, the chamber is
still there.
The chamber is basically empty and he's still there. So, yeah.
He's still there. And my final thought is stay tuned. Sometime in the not far distant future, we're going to go do an entire show devoted to the state of the keys.
Yes, where the keys stand now. That is coming up. So keep an eye.
That's coming up.
All right. Good night. Thank you all for watching.
Good night.